There comes a moment in every journey when your growth begins to reflect something uncomfortable in others. You may not notice it at first. A subtle shift in tone, a delayed reply, a look that feels heavier than before. Yet beneath those gestures lies a silent truth. Your success has become a mirror. Not a mirror of arrogance or pride, but a mirror that reveals what others have long tried to hide from themselves. When you start to rise, you do more than achieve, you expose. Your progress brings light to the places others keep in shadow. Your confidence reminds them of the times they doubted themselves. Your discipline calls out their hesitation. Your courage highlights their fear of acting. And though you never intended to confront anyone, your existence becomes a confrontation. Without uttering a word, your life says, "You could have done this too." And that statement, though silent, pierces deeply into the fragile shell of denial that many wear as comfort. Projection begins where self-awareness ends. When a person cannot face the part of themselves that feels small, envious, or incapable, they cast it outward onto you. You become the villain in the story they tell to preserve their self-image. They say you've changed, that you've become cold, prideful, or detached. But the truth is simpler and far more painful. Your evolution has disturbed their equilibrium. You represent the version of themselves they abandoned long ago, and seeing you thrive threatens the illusion that kept them safe. The mirror of projection is merciless because it reflects what one has spent years avoiding. It does not lie. It does not flatter. It simply reveals, and what it reveals most often is the contrast between potential and effort, between who someone is and who they could have been if they had dared to confront their own fears. That contrast feels like rejection to those unwilling to grow. So instead of admiration, they choose resentment. Instead of self-reflection, they choose criticism. Instead of inspiration, they choose distance. In this dynamic, your success becomes their wound. It presses against their unhealed failures and awakens the dormant jealousy they never admitted to having. They don't hate your achievements. They hate the reminder of their inaction. They don't despise your confidence. They despise the insecurity that your confidence exposes within them. It's not you they reject. It's their own reflection through you. The strange paradox of projection is that it tells you more about others than about yourself. When people begin to misunderstand your motives, when they interpret your peace as pride or your purpose as self-importance, understand that they are not seeing you clearly. They are looking through the fog of their own discontent. Every harsh judgment they throw your way is not an analysis of your character. It's an X-ray of their pain. And so, your task is not to defend yourself from misinterpretation. It is to remain aware of what is really happening beneath the surface, to see that the hostility directed toward your light is not evidence that you've gone astray, but confirmation that your light has reached further than expected. It has illuminated what was once comfortably dark. The mirror of projection teaches one of life's most difficult lessons. That being true to yourself will sometimes make others uncomfortable. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because authenticity is contagious and threatening to the false. Growth challenges the static, and your transformation destabilizes the narratives that others have built around you. They may withdraw, criticize, or even attempt to pull you back into their comfort zone, but that resistance is not personal, it's psychological self-defense. To understand this mirror is to move through life without taking hostility to heart. To know that when someone sees something intolerable in you, they are really seeing the part of themselves they've long refused to meet. And while you cannot heal that for them, you can choose to stay anchored in your truth, aware that every reaction you evoke is merely a reflection of the inner landscape from which it came. Beneath every polite smile and measured word lies a hidden force that most people refuse to acknowledge: the shadow. It is the collection of all that we deny, repress, or condemn within ourselves: jealousy, bitterness, insecurity, rage, all the emotions that don't fit the image we present to the world. The shadow is not evil, it is merely unseen. And when someone near us succeeds, shines, or grows beyond the boundaries we have accepted for ourselves, this buried energy awakens. It stirs like a sleeping storm, invisible but intense, and suddenly we find ourselves reacting in ways we cannot fully explain. This is the shadow reaction, the unspoken resentment that success provokes in the hearts of those who have not yet faced their own darkness. When you rise, when your life begins to reflect courage, persistence, and inner strength, it challenges others on a level deeper than logic. It disrupts the fragile balance of the ego that wants to believe it is doing enough. Your progress, your evolution, becomes a silent accusation. It whispers to them, you could be more. And because this whisper threatens their self-image, they turn that discomfort outward. They project it as criticism, sarcasm, distance, or indifference. In truth, they are not reacting to you, they are reacting to themselves. The shadow does not tolerate exposure. It cannot bear light. So, when another's success casts even a faint beam into its darkness, it rebels. It looks for flaws to justify the envy. It searches for reasons to discredit the one who triggered the discomfort. It says, they were lucky, or they changed, or they think they're better. These phrases are not statements of truth. They are the shadow's defense mechanisms built to protect the ego from the pain of inadequacy. The shadow reaction is not limited to strangers or critics. It often appears among friends, family, and those who once celebrated you. In the beginning, your dreams are harmless because they are still hypothetical. But once they take form, once you start to live them, your presence becomes confrontational, not because you intend it, but because your authenticity exposes pretense. Your freedom highlights another's fear of risk. Your commitment reveals another's habit of procrastination. The mere fact that you are changing becomes unbearable to those who remain bound to sameness. There is something profoundly revealing about the human psyche when faced with another's growth. Many claim to desire success, yet few can emotionally handle the success of someone close to them. It reminds them of their unfulfilled ambitions, their abandoned goals, and their inner compromises. So rather than confronting that pain, they disguise it beneath polite detachment or quiet hostility. The smile remains, but the eyes no longer shine. The words of support sound the same, but they carry a faint bitterness, a tone that didn't exist before. This is the shadow speaking through them. Subtle, defensive, wounded. Understanding the shadow reaction requires deep empathy. The person who envies you is not evil. They are fragmented. They are at war with parts of themselves they cannot accept. Your success did not create their pain. It merely illuminated it. And while this understanding does not erase the sting of betrayal or the chill of resentment, it allows you to see the pattern without bitterness. It reminds you that the hostility you sense is not truly about you. It is about the ancient conflict within every human being, the battle between what we show the world and what we secretly feel. The shadow reaction operates quietly, yet its consequences are vast. It erodes relationships, fuels gossip, and turns admiration into silent competition. It thrives in those who lack the courage to self-reflect, who would rather destroy the mirror than confront the reflection. And in every social circle, workplace, or family, this hidden energy shapes the emotional undercurrent more than anyone admits. The moment someone rises, the shadows shift, the masks tighten, and the quiet war begins, not on the surface, but deep within the psyche, where envy and self-doubt whisper louder than truth. Authentic growth is rarely celebrated by the world the way we imagine it. It is not the applause of a crowd, the nod of approval, or the acknowledgement of peers that defines it. True growth is a quiet, internal evolution, a transformation that begins in solitude, guided by the insistence of the soul to become what it was always meant to be. Yet with this kind of growth comes a subtle, often invisible cost, the separation from those who cannot or will not follow. When you begin to evolve authentically, you make choices that are true to your inner self, not to societal expectation. You pursue paths that excite your spirit, even if they are misunderstood. You shed habits and relationships that no longer serve your purpose. You set boundaries that others may find inconvenient or threatening. And it is precisely this clarity, this fidelity to self, that draws the line between who can accompany you on your journey and who cannot. Growth demands discernment, and discernment inevitably creates distance. The first price is often emotional, a subtle alienation from those you once felt close to. Friends who once laughed at the same jokes, shared the same routines, or celebrated the same small victories may suddenly seem distant. Conversations that were effortless can become strained. Invitations are no longer extended, or if they are, there is an unspoken tension beneath the surface. People who cannot comprehend your transformation may unconsciously react with suspicion, criticism, or even passive hostility. They do not see your growth as evolution, they see it as abandonment. And while it may not be expressed directly, you can feel it in the change of tone, the hesitation in their eyes, the weight behind their words. Another cost is the inner pressure that comes with standing alone. Authentic growth requires commitment, consistency, and courage. It demands that you honor your vision even when no one applauds, and that you persist even when the path is uncertain. This solitude can feel heavy, especially when contrasted with the social ease of conformity, yet it is within this tension between external misunderstanding and internal fidelity that the deepest transformation occurs. To grow authentically is to embrace solitude as a companion, to recognize that the pursuit of truth often separates you from the comfortable illusions of belonging. The price also manifests in subtle social friction. People often fear what they do not understand, and authentic growth can make them uncomfortable. Your confidence might be perceived as arrogance. Your boundaries might be labeled as coldness. Your clarity might be misread as judgment. The world tends to resist change, especially when it challenges existing hierarchies, routines, or expectations. To evolve is to disrupt the equilibrium others have settled into. And while this disruption is necessary for your journey, it can provoke resentment and silent opposition. Financial, professional, and relational costs may also accompany the pursuit of authenticity. Choosing purpose over convenience can mean declining opportunities that conflict with your values. Speaking your truth can challenge authority or popular opinion. Aligning with your own rhythm may require leaving behind environments where you once felt secure. These are not sacrifices in the conventional sense. They are consequences of choosing integrity over compromise, self-awareness over ease, and vision over acceptance. Yet the most profound price is perhaps internal, the need to confront yourself honestly. Authentic growth demands an unwavering gaze into your own shadow, the fears, insecurities, and limitations that resist change. You must face the parts of yourself you would rather deny, and in doing so, you become acutely aware of the contrast between who you are and who you are becoming. This confrontation is uncomfortable and often lonely. It requires patience, humility, and courage to stay the course without external validation. Ultimately, the cost of authentic growth is a series of separations from comfort, from approval, from outdated patterns, and sometimes from people you once considered indispensable. But within this price is the gift of clarity, the freedom to live in alignment with your soul, to pursue your true potential, and to walk a path that is uniquely yours. Every moment of discomfort, every strained relationship, and every whispered critique is evidence of the distance you have traveled from the familiar toward the authentic. As one rises toward deeper understanding and authentic self-realization, a peculiar form of loneliness often emerges, a solitude not caused by absence, but by the widening gap between your inner world and that of those around you. This is the spiritual loneliness of ascension, a quiet and persistent isolation that accompanies genuine growth. It is not the kind of loneliness that can be remedied by companionship or conversation. It exists in the subtle dissonance between your expanding consciousness and the fixed perspectives of others. At the beginning of any significant transformation, you may notice small shifts, a subtle withdrawal of attention, a faint unease in conversations, or the inability of old friends to relate to your new priorities. The more you awaken to your purpose, the more your interests, thoughts, and energies evolve. Ideas that once seemed shared may now feel private. Activities that once brought joy may now seem hollow. Even laughter can feel different because your inner perception has deepened. You are not alone because the world has left you behind. You are alone because your inner evolution has moved ahead and others cannot yet follow. This loneliness is deeply spiritual because it is intimately tied to the process of awakening. True ascension demands that you let go of external dependence and validation. The mind seeks recognition, but the soul demands truth. The path forward often requires solitude, not punishment, not exile, but space to listen, reflect, and integrate your expanding awareness. Every choice aligned with your higher self can create subtle frictions with those still tethered to familiar patterns. Relationships that once felt effortless may now carry tension because your energy no longer resonates at the same frequency. It is also a loneliness born of contrast. As you ascend, your values, desires, and priorities evolve. The things that once bound you to others, routine habits, shared fears, and collective anxieties, lose their appeal. You begin to see life with sharper clarity, recognizing illusions, motivations, and hidden patterns that others overlook or avoid. While this clarity is liberating, it can also estrange you from those who remain comfortable in the superficial or the familiar. The deeper your awareness grows, the more you sense a kind of invisible wall forming between your soul and the surrounding world. Spiritual loneliness often manifests in subtle ways. You may feel a sense of being misunderstood, as if the weight of your inner experiences cannot be communicated without distortion. People may listen, nod, or offer advice, but they cannot inhabit your perspective. The journey is yours alone, and even empathy can feel insufficient because no one can fully bear the consciousness you now carry. This solitude is not rejection, it is the necessary space for transformation, yet this form of isolation is also profoundly creative. It forces self-reliance, resilience, and intimacy with one's own soul. In this quiet, you begin to hear the subtle guidance of intuition, the whispers of insight, and the depth of your own inner authority. Solitude becomes a mirror in which you confront your true self, your strengths, weaknesses, and unspoken desires. It is in this inner dialogue that ascension is nurtured, for no external validation can substitute for the clarity found in honest introspection. Paradoxically, the spiritual loneliness of ascension is both painful and sacred. Painful because it separates you from familiar comforts and connections, and sacred because it initiates a deeper alignment with your life's purpose. Those who have not yet ascended may perceive distance as aloofness, pride, or withdrawal, but it is not a denial of connection. It is a prioritization of authenticity. In these moments, the soul learns that true intimacy is not measured by proximity or agreement, but by resonance of consciousness. As you navigate this solitude, you may feel the subtle resistance of the world around you. Others may question your choices, doubt your intentions, or unconsciously attempt to pull you back into the patterns they inhabit. This is a natural response to the disruption your growth causes in their equilibrium. And while these challenges may amplify the sense of isolation, they also affirm the significance of your journey, reminding you that ascension is inherently individual, a climb that cannot be shared fully, but can only be walked with courage, awareness, and unwavering fidelity to your own truth. There is a war that few acknowledge openly, a battle that leaves no scars visible to the eye, yet it rages relentlessly in the hearts and minds of those around us, and sometimes within ourselves. This is the war sparked not by failure or conflict, but by the quiet triumph of personal growth and authentic success. It is the silent tension between your rising light and the shadows it illuminates in others. To transcend this war is not to fight, argue, or defend. It is to move beyond the battlefield entirely, to occupy a space where the reactions of others no longer dictate the peace of your own mind. The first step in transcending this unseen war is awareness. You must recognize that hostility, criticism, or envy directed toward you is rarely about your actions, achievements, or intentions. It is a reflection, a mirror of unhealed wounds, insecurities, and projections within those observing your growth. When people react with resentment, their response is a signal of what lies buried in their own psyche. Understanding this allows you to perceive the conflict without becoming entangled in it, to see it for what it is rather than what it appears to be. Acceptance is the next critical layer. Accepting the existence of the war does not mean condoning negativity or inviting disrespect. It means acknowledging that others' discomfort is not your burden to carry. It is natural to feel wounded by misunderstanding or rejection, yet clinging to that pain prolongs the battle. Transcendence begins when you release the need for validation from those who are incapable of giving it. By doing so, you reclaim the energy that was being absorbed by the war and redirect it toward your own growth, vision, and inner equilibrium. Equally important is detachment without disconnection. Detachment does not imply indifference or coldness. It is the ability to maintain compassion while refusing to internalize the projections of others. You can recognize the shadow in those around you, their envy, fear, and judgment, while remaining anchored in your own truth. This requires a steady awareness of boundaries, both psychological and emotional, and a commitment to protect the sanctity of your inner life. The more you cultivate this inner refuge, the less capable external conflict becomes of disturbing your balance. Transcending the war also demands resilience and patience. Those who are unsettled by your growth may act in subtle ways, with criticism, gossip, or withdrawal, testing your stability and resolve. These tests are not punishments, nor are they judgments on your worth. They are challenges posed by the natural friction between light and shadow. Each instance of misunderstanding or resistance offers an opportunity to strengthen your equanimity, to refine your capacity to remain centered amid turbulence, and to deepen your insight into human nature and the mechanics of projection. The practice of gratitude is another powerful tool. When confronted with silent hostility, it is tempting to focus on the negative energy, to become entangled in defensive reasoning. Instead, turning attention to what is abundant in your life, your relationships, opportunities, and personal progress reorients the mind and strengthens the spirit. Gratitude shifts perception, transforming what could be experienced as attack into an invitation for growth, clarity, and discernment. Finally, transcending the war involves embracing the inherent impermanence of all reactions. The envy, or resistance you face is often temporary, shaped by circumstances, emotions, and unacknowledged fears. By maintaining an observer's perspective, you understand that conflict is a passing phenomenon rather than a permanent judgment. You see the ephemeral nature of discord and choose to invest your attention not in the war itself, but in the continuity of your own path, your own growth, and your own integrity. In transcending this silent battlefield, you step into a state of freedom that is both rare and profound. It is a freedom that comes not from changing others, but from mastering the self, not from winning approval, but from cultivating unshakable inner peace, not from extinguishing hostility, but from rising above it. You begin to exist in a space where the opinions, insecurities, and shadows of others have no authority over your well-being, and the silent war loses its power over the trajectory of your life.